Rayanyag ti Lugosor, programa ngagserbi kamang kenrang tayo iti gobyerno probinsyal. Lalo na, iti beneg iti sanggo niyang panlalawigan ti probinsya ng Lugosor. Mangted tinanay ng informasyon kadagiti programa, proyektos, tulong, ken mga sister kadagiti agproblema nga OFW ang kalugaran tayo. Rayanyag ti Lugosor. Tinagaget, Produktibo Presiding Officer, the busy Governor of the Province of Ilocos, Ryan Lois Singson, our main anchor, Ken Lito Javier, our co-anchor, Ryan Nyag Ilocosor, at tuyen nagsubli ngagserbi kada kayo, agsipod tada kayo ti inspirasyon mi, Ryan Nyag Ilocosor, da kayo ti inspirasyon mi. Hello, good morning, 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 good morning. Good morning, Ilocosorian. March 5 po ngayon. Kumusta kayo amin na po? Happy viewing. Nagpaspastel daw. At kami manana po, programa Ryan Nyag Ilocosor. Maripot opisina na po Vice Gobernador Ryan Singson. Dito gayem ken kabsat yung kapidyo Lito Javier. At kami po agserbil at tamat kada kayo papagayam. OFW, good morning. Anyaman nga oras ti inyo po dito Pilipinas. Happy viewing. Kada kayo amin. Gagayem. Ken nga po akailian. Wen? Mangnamnaman na ka po. Ngadda kay lata. Ngagbubuya kanyak. Through Facebook Live. Iloco Heritage sa channel. Ken kastamatan. Itibiyang nga po ti Eagle Vision Cable TV. Papagayam. Ala. Kumusta? Agan anad tayo. Anad daming anad. Ngiteramidan. Kita nyo. Di kano na dyan. Di kalman. Di minsan. Dandani manan na nasawaan at ipan nakadesgrasya ni Apo Sanggunyang Bayan member Marvin Aung, si Marunomat ni Apo Sanggunyang Bayan na member Attorney Bia Kabato dita Ili iti Santa Maria. Apo nalusak di luganan da nga kotse baglagat na nakalasat da nga kabsat nakaturog indung parnati may isang cement mixer. Po makotim nga rin. Cement mixer ka nagdakkel. Papagayam. Anyan. So grabe so nga gananad tayo po iti pataray. Dita kalkalsada no makaturog ka niturog mo ipaigid mo. Hamong ay kamakam di balayo bakan to nga damdama. Ore pa nga to 100 meters langan dakad yes dig kay paraangan yon. No isumat apo iti pan nakadisgrasyam. Kaslamat kanya ka. Agsiksik ko na lang aro din nga sumrik gigate jay balay main. Nag-overtake pa lang nga po ti kanawan mo't di nakamotorsiklo duwada nagkaangkas da dinong parda day jay bakrang gilugang kao di kad nawara. Kita nga talaga ta aksidente mga kaibigan niya. So kung di tempo amua po no pagpatinggaan ti aksidente. Okay? So ngannad ti aming ngannad kuna man kada kayon. Ini kalman ket nag-kick off mat ti celebration apo iti daytoy makon ko na gagayem ken apo kailan nga nagano ito yan Fire Month celebration tayo. Okay? Salbaren tayo apo dagiti sanikwa tayo. Babaan iti panangiwas sa apo iti uram. Kadagita lugar tayo gagayem ken apo kailan ta ngamin kuna man kada kayo na po. Nakamamak gagayem kaya na po kailan daytoy nga pasamak nakamamak daytoy apo nga pasamak nag-kick off idikalman Monday po yan nagiti taga Bureau of Fire Protection idalwan niya po Fire Senior Superintendent Floro Obrero, iti Provincial Director, iti Bureau of Fire, nagparada day di kalman. Dito yung Metro Vigan area, ken kastama dita Ililio apo, dita Ililio, damat, Bureau of Fire. Mangipasimudaag na isudak at adadad nga nakasagana nga tumulong para iti panakasalwad dagiti property tayo babaan ti panangliklik iti uram. Okay? According to survey, iti pagtawdan na po iti uram ket daytoy sigarilyo. Wana tado pa lang amin dagitay aglayng agsigarilyo, lalo no makainom da, maturog da lang rodan, sabay da nga maturog, agsigarilyo da, di kad da jay rongrong ti sigarilyo, inton no natin nagyay ayan iti muskitero, wano di jay ayan apo iti kama, na uraman, gayam. Dagitay ipurwak yung rongrong ti sigarilyo, ipurwak yun dito ti igid ti alalad, that cause of fire, papagayam. One, may sapay, dahito'y multiple connection, wano octopus connection. Sungat nga rita, ti may sa kanagitilik-klik-klikan tayo. Dabang amin dagitay building nga na kurang ti design. Basit iti linya ti kuryente. So lang nga di balay yung nagsangalan, idi renovate da jay wirings na, sinukatan da iti wirings, ay nas ko Mario Josep. Apay nagdakalamot ti bayadanan, kung nakinjubing ko kahit nagnayo na kaming ti switch na kita. So malaang. So nga kadarato aming jibarang jaglawlaw, adda switch na jibubeda, adda ti saksakan. Kasjay, hanga kasla ko mati may sa nga building nga dudwa ti saksakan mo. Haan nga kasjay tatan, mga kaibigan. Ti sitwasyon ka dagito yan, masapol nga nakaplano amin dagitan, ta itibiyang ti Bureau of Fire, ken itibiyang nga po, ti munisipyo, no mangala ka iti certificate of occupancy mo, umay da ka inspekan. No makita da nga dyan ti plano, awan di jay apo deta ori may nga saksakan laang, nakita da nga adda tinakay kabil, ay ket i-disregard da adayay, kakabsat, kasi apo iti sitwasyon, gagayem, i-disregard da, kung amang kada kayon, apo akailian. So nga, kitaan nyo ang nalaing, masapol amin na po, ngam no awan, ti plano na, mabali nyo matagparamid ti plano, as built nga makon ko na, tibiyang nga po iti, amuda kita, tibiyang nga lalo na unay, tapo tibiyang iti architect, so trabaho da rita, itibiyang nga po da kitay electrician, itibiyang nga po da kitay engineer, kasjay po ti trabaho da gagayem kaya na po kailan niya, i-as built da. Dagiyay, tapno iwas apo iti desgrasya. Okay? Iwas ti desgrasya. Kumbaga, nasa standard kalaang. Nasa standard kalaang. Ayan. Okay? So nga, kita nyo, dagita nakasaksak ng electric pan, no karada ka din, warwari nyo, ikanyo langis na. Laglagi pa nyo dayay. Nagganas ti maturog nga naulimek, awam mangmangag mong istorbo ngam no, naturog ka, agkarkarada ka di electric pan, na-distract jay atensyon mo nga maturog, or apay nga ta nga nakapudpudo mat ti angin na ti electric pan, ay gaya mag-overheat di likod nan, dahil ibara na ki ipugpugsiw na malaki niya mo, dagita aircon, apay ti kunayo haang nag-overheat aircon, nag-overheat mo't adagit aircon, so nga, pasarayo dalusan nyo na kita, brasan nyo na kita air cleaner na, papagayam, kaya dumapay, kasi lang dita po, dati maintenance scheduled na na kita. Amin, mga kaibigan, no na kita ayan iti kuryente, na kita yan ti bobedayaw, medyo madibasit tilinyan, mga kaibigan, kadadaalan, tilinlinyan na po, ay, hanyong ipapilit, no, gilap-gilap day jay bulb, ay, hanyong ipapilitan, sukatan yon, kita nyo, no, medyo agmumoist, amin nagigya precautionary. Da kayo mga dadarwar, for example, da katakataltalunan, no, agpuor kayo, kitain nyo mat, situit, bantayan nyo. Kasi bawal din ti, agpuor ka na kitay makalkalyo apong ngaruruutan. Bawal na kita nga puuranan, mga kaibigan, kasi ada ti lintag. Itibiyang nga po ti environment. Lalo na kadagiti adda iti kabambantayan, agdagiti mapanaganop, dagiti agisagana ti pagmulaan da po iti nateng di tabambantay, agkaingin da, kaingin nga mo makunkuna, patpaten da, dagiti babatita kay kayo di jay, dalusan da tano adda ti pagmulaan da. And then, into no magago dagiti kay kayo, puuran da. Dagiti matapo ti rason no apay, nga adda iti po respire. Tahanda po nga mabantayan. Aglalo no nag-angin tinapigsan, naikayab, nasilmutan di karuutan di yayan, awang pangalan da pagsibog da or pangdep-dep da, papagayam. Kasjaya po iti sitwasyon. So, diti pagilyan tayo nga Pilipinas, nakadadua po iti kaso iti po respires. Lalo iti probinsya po iti Benguet, Abra, kadagiti mountainous provinces, mga kaibigan. Deta po ti maysa kadagitay problema itatta. So, nakarigrigat. Kasla ko for example, iti parte ti Santa nga kanayong umururam ide. Parte apo iti Mount Bulagaw, apeng adda mauram niya tuktok ti bantay, tadagitay mapan aganop, puuranda, tano nagtemtem da jay, iti rumabi o masidagdagi jay, wild animals, isuntumot na po ti panang paltog da, parang ganon. Yeah? Kaya ti problema, handa may secure nga road apo, da jay, pinanawan da nga temtem. Di da nga sibuganan, or isbuan da lang kuman. Ata nalawa una yan. Moyo, kasla ko makadagita kabakiran tayo, no napang kayo nag-tree planting, iti bulan iti onyo, iti kastoy nga bulanan, mga kaibigan, daraktel basitan, siguro pagatsibait, ngam no, na wildfire amin dagita, nalpas. Kasla din na panak ti Cervantes, nakitak ti Cervantes idi, adda ti wildfire, nalabsam me, amoyo tinti na wildfire, di mismo nga kaduan iti pine tree. Hindi kayang pine tree ket ore no si bibiyag, ore no naata, no mauram latamat, nagdarang pay mga kaibigan. At aday yung amin na po toto na, kasla rubber tree day yay, papagayam niya. So nga, nakadaldelikado mat. So kita nyo tatapo, nakapimpintas nga kitkitain, itiglawlaw no nakaberberdeg, lalo takabakbakiran. Pero pag ganitong sitwasyon mga kaibigan, nakadradray, di ba? Nakadradray. So nga amok apo nga deta ket isumat iti kayat yung nga mapasamak ang teko nakarudan ipateg tayo iti aglawlaw tayo. So with the biyang nga po iti provincial fire marshal tayo babangkin Sir Flor Obrero ken kada kamimot lalo ti Loco Heritage Channel maki-tie up kamimot apo dito yung probinsya tayo nga Ilocos Sur, ti celebration, iti Fire Month celebration, na sana wala nang masunog, mga kaibigan, tapno adaranyag tibiyag. Inapasamak nga oram po di ili ti San Juan, San Isidro, San Jose, nawanan da Pagtaengan, nawanan da ti gamit, mga kaibigan, so nga itata ti programa ranyag ti Ilocos Sur, kadagiti kaya na po ti tumulong, wayayo lang nga po ti ag-message kinita na 0926-615-5143. Or nongem mi dagitay kwan nadumatan na po dagitay ng ted ti cash at damo dagiti ng ted apo iti dagitay used clothes mga kaibigan ka isu dagyen apo ya isu dagyen ti kunakon gagayem ken apo kailan nga pagrubuatan met muk nga dumatan iti ng ted. So tolong-tolong po tayo para ti dayto ingantay kunak kuman no mabalin sana wala nang victim. Wala nang victim. Okay? Awam biktima gagayem ken apo akailyan. Awanton iti biktima. Nagrigat ti mabiktima ti oram, kuna man kada kayon gagayem ken apo akailyan. Ya, nagrigat ti mabiktima apo iti oram. So pagpakasinak kada kayo, sapay-sapay lang da kayo mga kaibigan ket amoyo ti responsibilidad yu apo iti aglawlaw. Dagitaw bing Nagitaw binglaw na yung agayayayam dita, no, dati, agloto-loto da. Ya? Agloto-loto da. Agloto taman ti pinakbet manang, siyak ti para loto si kamat ti para songrod, wan adeng, dada kayay likod, yan ti kamarin, nagloto-loto da dijay, papagayam, kaya nakasamsamo ginagyananda, nakadunga pempen diyay, hindi kuan, gimil ayab lutuenda, pinanawan dan, buteng da, di ba? So nga kita nyo digitay matches, when kita ko nato yung puspro, digita lighter, digita kandela, digita papagayam, ti kitain nyo nga nasayat, digita apo ti, siputan nyo, itaw nagtibalayuhan, apo nga maiwara-wara dagita. Dagi yubing ko, dubing na bilibak, handa kayo tagayam, di kakasyay. Handa nga padasan ti nagluto-lutaw, or whatsoever, kasi maong tanda kanyak. Dagi lang may saidi, dagi aldrich ko, iso lang ti medyo garawi-gawi din, no, dati, agtugaw ka, dagkambakam ka, makakita ti abot nga dagita, yan ti saksakan, igaman na, idugsol na giman ang kasya, idugsulin na. Dagi lang ti pirko kanya na, so nga ti pumpumayak ide, ikak ti tape na dagi jay saksakan, di balay, mga kaibigan, kasi apo, ti bubrak ide, so nagrigat, no, dagi ti ubing aglano, handa pa lang amo apo, tusto nga paliwawang, papagayam, iti aglawlaw yaw. So nga kilala nyo nagrigat apo ti mauraman kay sus Mariosep, ade mayali kakam, na siya lang mayali kakam tabiyag mo, nayali kakam man, no, mayali kakam, ultimo, amin, awam mabati, papagayam, sus Mariosep, nakakita kay mga tati na oramon, nagdagsan, in a split of minutes, an hour, di mapo di balay, apay nalakayo ti gipundar, amuyo, kunatayo, alaga na siya lang kadin ang tibiyag tinapukaw, nagpaiso, ang dagi ka impundar mo tilasod, iti manupulo nga tawon, nagrigrigatam, tapos na oram, in a split of an hour only, napukawan. Gapo iti panagbaybay, mga kaibigan. So nga, da kayo apo, nagpatader kayo ti balayo, siguraduhan nyo nga, adda iti electrician nga certified, itibiyang iti Locosur Electric Cooperative. Or, adda na kita registered apo nga electricians tayo. Isuda ti ag-install. Tamuda po di sizes. Iti wire. Anyo nga dati paspasarakan. Napadasak iti gimatang apo iti made in China nga extension wire. Os-osarag. Idi kuan, api nga tagas aso umutan. Malunag di wire rin. Gaputan na pigsa di load, mga kaibigan. So nga, mapangkailat tapo ti standard. Dagiti dadoma nakapimpino iti usarinda po ang extension wire. Hangkay unay gumatang dagi adu nga extension wire nga titi dapat dagiti kastoy ka katitidog na ang extension ay nga kwa dagi saksakan. Sa nga pulo moten ti pagsaksakan nan ay kathang nga mabalin ti kasjay, mga kaibigan. Ken dapat ada ti circuit breaker dita uneg ti pagtaengan nyo, dagita circuit breaker yu apo, ikaten nyo dagita, lasangin nyo dagita, sukatan nyo baro, no nga gumangganan. Pacheck yo. Nasisya nga gumastos kay basit, kaysa dayay, mapukaw yu, amin dita pagtaengan nyo, mga kaibigan. Kasi ti kahit ko apong mangyari kada kayo, impossible. So nga, aganad tayo, anad ti amin nga anad, mga kaibigan, nagrigat apo, iti mauraman. Okay? Now, dito'y pangabulan, dito'y month celebration tayo apo, Women's Month, iso nga rod nga idinagprograma kami kina po Vice Gobernador, kunana, inton Martes idol, dagito kakadwa tayong ladies dijay, sudan to take preside. Itid tayo nga gundaway kadakwada. Which is true naman. Kaya bumdagita kat kayang-kaya damat. Kahangaslay di una nga panawanan nga babae po kat agserbida kadagiti lalaki. Ito ko nada nga pangkamalaeng tatahanan. Dagiti babae agtrabaho dapay. Tumulong dapay nga mangipundar ti pamilyada. Agasam ti rigat ti babae agtagibida. Inton no masapol ni Mr. dati ananya mga oras, mga kaibigan. Itaya da. Tono mapandaman to agtrabaho, mapandag trabaho. Kasjay. So nga no totoso mon ad-ado ti trabaho iti
babae tatan kaysa lalaki with straw, ya, aglabada, agdalusda, agplanchada, no, so, dumanon ti oras ti rabi, mga kaibigan, ikayangda, dumanon ti oras ti bigat, papagayam, gipareharda man, mapanda ag-opisina, no mapanda ag-opisina ni lakay, mapanda ag-opisina ni baka. Diba? Nagado apo trabaho ti babae tatan. So nga tatak, kung nami ka na kayo, da kayo ti boss, papagayam, dito nagtipagtangan, ay kahit saludo kami kada kayo. Ta siyempre no awang kayo. Da kayo nga tima ko na po nga silnag ti pagtaengan, silaw ti pagtaengan, papagayam. Ya, ilaw ng tahanan, kayo po 'yon. Idi damo hindi mawatan na tama ko na apo nga ilaw ng tahanan, mga kaibigan. Oh, Mario Joseph. Hindi bumaybayag, lalo nagbabasa na kaon, ay di ako nga na-realize nga orin no kasano ti rigat ni inang aywanan na nagitan na, lalo ka nagiti agsisina ti asawa na, mabati ken jay anak, nagijay mabati kanya nagijay anak, mga kaibigan, kasano pa nagbiag na nga rod ngay, gagayam ka na po kailyan, no kasi po ti mangyari, di ba? Iso nga nagito yapo kat challenge sa amin iti biag, so nga amoyo agbilbilibak kada kayo nga inna ti pagtaengan nga da kayo laeng nga po tinangisakad iti biag dagitan na iyo. Oh. Asjay agbilbilibak kada kayo. Aglalo nga hangkay pulos nga kwa for example kuma nagsisina da kisina da. Oh, diyan na da nabati kanya da. Kay intuloy da po ti biag kasi nga talaga ti karera ti panagbiag. Oh, ingga na nga nakadal kita yo handa nga asawa sa balin. Parang ganon, mga kaibigan, ano? Gamno nagijay, hindi ka mo, diyan mawatan no dadoma, nakiasawa ka lang aruda, di mununan, idi nabalo ka, or idi kwan, nakidivorce ka, biro ka man sa balin, idi kwan, nakidivorce ka man, biro ka man sa balin, Mario Joseph. Diyan mawatan no kasi, mga kaibigan, anya ba ti hanap mo sa buhay mo, ragsak, ragsak. Parang ganon niya. Ti pagbilibak dagijay kaslakin da tayo mamuk nga nag-retire nga principal dita Kawayan. Manutaw mo, ma'am. Apay ma'am awan asawam adda nabalo na iti tawon ko nga 28 ko nana. Idi manutaw mo tatan nasurok mo 80. Apay sipod-sipod hangkan nga asawan ko na haanang barok. Kita yo, awan pay anak na, pay nang asawa. Po kailyan ko na nagtanang ka nga babaeng kung kuna nga ron kanya na. Digi ati usto nga natanang, naibtor, mga kaibigan. Angas laki da dumang nga marupok nga kunada. Nakasagid da lang nga po tinagwapo nga lalaki, kayang da manayin. Napanday abroad, nakidivorce da. Ay nakisina din, sinadan nila kay da nga dati Pilipinas, mga kaibigan, wenuhan, da dyan, nagsinadan. Nagsinadan. Da dyan nakamadmadi, mga kaibigan, intono ko man, nakabiro naman ti nagwapon, Isus Mario Joseph, manayin. Kasyay. Ito ti kasyay, niya nga rod, biyag da reta, makamuda namang dribulan. Di po ba? Kasi parang awanti mapyar, no kasi niya. Awan piyarin da nga lalaki. Parang padasin damin, mga kaibigan. Kasi lamo adi elementary kami, kada high school kami, kung ano uy, may kamanong boyfriend mo dahil tang. May kalima. Allah, select ka nga select. Collect ka nga collect, then select. collect, then select, ha? Okay. Kasi diyan, mga kaibigan, sa totoo lang, dumati kasi po, biyagyo dahil ta, makamukha yung mang dribble na, niya nga rudpay. Di ba? May nga pakpakilaman nga. Igilaan, anabati kayat ng asawan iti natanang nga babae, mga kaibigan. Ninto pa Gabriela silang mat, idinabalo, nangasawa nga dagos. Di ba? Nangasawa pa yung nga dagos, mate. Malito pa yung daduma, mate. Ure pa yung dapay asawa na, mangalada pa lang sa bali. Kaya, Sabali na diya kandigid, sabali na diya kanawan, sabali to pala na diya sango, sabali to pala na diya adda diya likod da. Pumario Joseph kam la. Di ba? Ngem tayo ko nakaroden biagyo day ta makamo kayo. Di ba? So nga dagiti babae tata, papagayam manmanulangan na po iti matino. Dito rabaw iti daga. Gagayam ka na pokel yan. Ngem, huwag naman kayong magpakamartir. Iba naman kasi rin matino, ken iba na yung martir. Martir! Amo yung timako ng martir. Anyak ka mo, no kasano ti panangisplikaryo kanyayo yung martir, mga kaibigan, kay siya kami kasabali. Martir! Apa yung martir ken yung tanga, parehas mayang? Ya? Yung ti saludsod ko. Apay kadi di martir po nga word ken di tanga. Parehas kadi. Ada mo di duma kasla ko Oy, nilakay mo babae. Relas ang apulo babae na. Sika. Sla dadto ya mo. Amman amok. Nya nga rod. Kaya ayatag nga minisuna. Agawawid magkanyak. Awala puto na jarwar. Dayamait, mga kaibigan, ya, dayamait. Ay, tanga! Kung nadanto manay, nagtanga ka niya! Nya kamuano niya na martir ken tanga, gagayam ka na po yan. Iti kaya nang asawa na po. So nga tata, nagrigapat. Uy, hamilang ibagbaga nga da kami lang lalaki ti makaytured nga agkwatata na. Dayay agbasol. Pati babay, mga kaibigan. No kaya di lalaki, kaya mo di babae. Kasi tata na po. Ado! Tiamutay dita. Ado ti mabalinte ko mga itangab nga maritesen tayo ngam te konak madi mabaleng. Private life daleta makamukay mo tayo panagbiag yon. Wala na kaming pakialam mga kaibigan. Kasyay, so nga ti konak tata Perin Square parehas apo iti karbangan kalintagan iti babae tata mga kaibigan. Kaya nga sinabi nila ang babae hindi sinasaktan, minamahal po yan. Okay? Kaya tekunak, numabalin, da kayong babae, nga to lang, natantanor lang, ti panunuyo kadagiti lalaki. Kasi na kanya yung nagtibalay, no duma, ong tanak di pagat ko, apay hamuamon iti pagluglugaramon. Kuna na kanya, no duma, mga kaibigan. At anya nga rin siyempre, no, nakulaapang kamot ti sabidong ni Araken na, no, maminsan sa bali mo jay mindset mo, kasjay, papagayam niya. So nga, nagidaduma, digiti babae, agbalin apo nga advisor tayo. Isuda apo iti pan nakasilaw tayo. Papagayam, hangkadi. Adda ba pelikula nga awan iti actress na? Ana ba ti role ti actress di pelikula? Di ba iso ti mangiguide ken di aktor, mga kaibigan? Iso mang tulong? Kastamat yun ti Pagtaengan na. Anya ba ti role ni Mrs. di jay? Dade, nagsweldo kan. Mabalin di mapan Robinson. Mabalin di mapan nag-shopping. Kasyalangan ti pa'y pagkikita na kinya mo na kasabali nga tongtongan day diyan. Okay? Di ba? Napanugak no kung kanana ko napanugak. Ingka man nagloto, baunan na ka pa nagloto ni Mrs. mo, kada lang napanug agtugtugaw ang Netflix. Wala na, madina, mga kaibigan niya. Digiyan nak mo, di na pa'y ay nagyan na mo, yam mo, rimorda mo. Di na pa'y damagan, no napanalagyan na. Nye orasan, alas 10 rabin. Ayan na mo. Di na pa'y amuti whereabouts, mga kaibigan. Di ba? Ganon. So nga, aduma apo naduma-duma nga klase ken estilo ti panagbiag di adi ti rabaw ti daga. Ngamtay ko na karod, once nga naging responsable ka nga mother, naging responsable ka nga silaw. See to it and be sure nga nagi silaw di Pagtaengan nga makon ko na napintas tiranyag na, mga kaibigan. Tapno hantay po nga mayaw awan. Saludo na kada kayo. Da kayo nga inna ti Pagtaengan nga whether ano bang tawag sa inyo, martir, whether ba anong tawag sa inyo, mga tanga, whether ano bang tawag sa inyo, mga nasisirib nga inna ti Pagtaengan. Awang problema diya, basta importante may tedyo tusto nga serbisyo kada kayo. Gagayam ken na po kailan. May tedyo tusto nga serbisyo iti pamilyayo nga Hanyo mat ang aliplipata, nga lita bagiyo kat importante mo, kita nyo pa yung mat ano, kaya yung ano saan, hanggang dingas jay. So, Happy Women's Month celebration, kada kayo amin. Mestra, Happy Women's Month celebration, ya? Sikalat na ti Mestra, iti unag iti Pagtaengan, awan sa bali. Da kayo mat apo nga bubuya kanyak, sakripisyo kayo, da kayo tabalasiw tao, trabaho kayo piman. Siyempre, no, da ko manapindas nga trabaho yo, katalang nga mga panawan nyo kumapamilyayo dito, yan, nagyan na iyo, sumang kayo no, gapo kayo abroad, kadi na pa'y dandan idahan na kayo pa'y nga maarako pun, di ba? Handa kayo pa'y nga, ano yung oras ni katulong, dahil nani, diyay, mga kaibigan kayo, so mga ewan ng padakkel, sipod-sipod, ya, maminsan lang ti duwang katawan, talo-tawang agkita kayo yara mo, Mario Joseph, ayan na dayari na, adakin dayay yaya, papagayam, tapos dayay gayam yaya, ay kakaid na gayam ni Daddy iti sekreto ti Rabii. Ang daming istorya, no? Nya kitibiyag nga talaga na po, colorful tibiyag, gagayam ken na pokel. Amoy dito iti kahit ko nga dali, idigbabasa na iti psychology, ya, behavioral psychology. Amoy yung mga kaibigan, ti may isang nga tao nga mingan, no, mabalin lang ko mga maadal ko ti direksyon ti biyag. Dagiti kahit ko hindi nga takwaten Ya, nga mabalin. Ta uray pay no planuwem nga nasayat. Dayay kaya mo mangyari inton no bigat, inton no umay nga aldaw, umay nga lawas, umay nga bulan, umay nga tawen. Hamu nga magunod Hamu maala. Isikan to ti kaya mo ka mapangka, mapanak to man inton Domingo dijay Heritage Resort of Kawayan ag swimming no kunam ko when ito no dumanong ti Domingo at damit ti aberya nga nangyari kanyam or nakapanam nga importante man hanggang nakapanan, di ba? Parang ganon. So nga tibiyag tayo ke hantay nga may baga-baga no nya apo iti pagbanagan. Madalang mat aday ko na tayo at least adda ti planom iti biyag. Ano ba ang plano mo sa buhay? Bakit ka nagkakaganito, nagkagaganyan? Di mo makita nga nakadano na kitay amo tayo, nagsisirib da nga tattao, pero handa nga may turong ti direksyon iti biag da, mga kaibigan. Isn't it? It's true. Tapay. Padala sila sa Agos kung minsan. So nga, teko na nga rod, in every seconds or minutes comes and go, masapol nga, itad mo aming kinapo Diyos, agyamang ka. Tinagmalam, sabay ka maturog, diyamang ka kinapo Diyos, mission accomplished. Lord, inton no bigat, sapay lang ko mata makaringak, nga nasayaat, nasalunat, tamaramid kong tumanen, dagitinak, aramiden, planwak nga aramiden. So nga sabay kang maturog, kararag ka, diyamang ka, habang nga maturog ka, pahamumag ka, nga malang nga dago si turog mo niya, agplano ka, no niya ti dapat nga, aramida manan inton no bigat. Ti unos ti 24 anyamanen ti aramidam inton no bigat. Mapanak ka di makininom, birthday ni Kastoy, adaget tag weather mi, mapanak ka di. Siyempre, planuam, mga kaibigan. Awan ti bagas inton no bigat. Nya ti ubra nga rod. Diyan na taw nagbalayan, gremedyo ka. Ganun ho yun, mga kaibigan. Pagplanuhan mo ang buhay. When? Okay po. Sige po. Commercial break muna tayo. Paki-follow lang po. Follow kami. Iloco Heritage Channel, Facebook Live, mga kaibigan. And then, mapantay tumat apo. When i-share yung mga kaibigan. When? Paki-share lang po. Gagayam ka na po kalyan. Kasilaan nga po. Okay. Tibiyang nga po, di Philippine National Police, madamdama, pagpapatangan tayo ito tata, medyo nagbaliwan na dagiti rules and regulations about possessing of firearms, mga kaibigan. Ambisyon na nagigam ti paltong atetidog. Babasi laang, napadasa mo dito, di nagiduldulin ng idin. Nga mahangko nga pinagpautan, tanya kaya, di mo man may tugot-tugot niya papanam, nagatatidugan. Palaksin da kalaban mo ko mga sa kabatalyon, so, yung nagilang pagay-ay-ayam mo lang, but sila kanya kat, pagay-ay-ayam ko mo laang, hangko mga datay Pan ko mapagpangas dito, ano niya, pagayayam, sports mo lang nga po, ti gapuna. Okay, madamdaman to, dito, topic tayo mga kaibigan. Ken, BBM po tayo.
Nueva Segovia Consortium of Cooperatives. Di kooperatiba ano bayagin nagseserbi karang di Ilocano iti amyanan a Luzon. Di kooperatiba ang manpapaay ti serbisyo, benepisyo, ken mangisakit karang di empleyado ken miyembro na. Di Nueva Segovia Consortium of Cooperatives wano NSCC ket adon tinatulungan na. Babayin med iti namayat alangin-langin ken kooperasyon dagiti miyembro ken mangimatmaton. Adon tinagduroasan ti kooperatiba. Adupay dagiti naynayon ang kasdek akas ti NSCC Farm, Chicharon Processing Facility, Macro Laboratory, kastameten ti NSCC Plaza, ken NSCC Business Center. Isungan niya pelang ter orayem makikaptengkan iti kadakilan a kooperatiba iti probinsya. Di Nueva Segovia Consortium of Cooperatives suman na NSCC. Imatmatunan na daytoy ni Dr. Gibina Kenny.
Paapugan iti makayayo abuya iti uneg iti pagtaengan. Anyama nagasapulam kas ti moderno a klase iti silaw kada ti chandelier, LED lights ken na dumapay. Kasapay kadagiti agkagapintas a toilet bowl, wall claddings, stainless sa lababo, kastameten na dumaduma ti klase na a tiles ken na dumapay a materyales agkasapulan ti pagbangon ti balay. Pasyaren ti AC Newborn Home and Builder Center. Nalawa ti showroom da, agkomportable kang agpili ti kayat mo a disenyo. Mabalin pa nga isuda iti magi-set up kadagiti katangin. Masarakan sa Rizal Street, Sulphur, Bantay, Ilocos Sur. Imatmatunan na Mr. and Mrs. Alain Chan. Saanen ngagtaktak mapankan sa JAC Newborn Home and Builder Center.
Aldaw kayo aming kailian, siya ni Jean Pacquiao de Guzman, may isang legit and authorized distributor ni I Am Amazing Pure Organic Barley ni Miss Maritani Fernandez na nagkaputi Australia. Dating barley tayo at 100% na organic, kasama din na FDA approved, halal certified, ken adaan pa iti super brand seal. Dating of barley tinakatulong kani Miss Maritani Fernandez, iti sakit na nga cancer, kat ikunusan iti 22 years cancer-free kisuna. Ni I Am Amazing Pure Organic Barley tayo, katandaan iti 68 micronutrients, karaman na iti amino acids, enzymes, vitamins, and minerals. Isungan ang paspasar ka iti problema iti high blood, cholesterol, diabetes, arthritis, kaya nadunga pa yung an-anayan, ipadas mo iti I Am Amazing Pure Organic Barley, so sigurado na makatulong din kayo iti sa lugar. Disclaimer lang, ti barley tayo kat saan nga maaramat na pangagas, yung basket di, day tikat may salaang na alternatibo, nga mabalin nga makatulong, kadagiti anyaman nga an-anayan tayo. Pag mapadas nyo iti visa ti I Am Amazing Pure Organic Barley, mabalin nyo iti tumawag iti numero 0999-880-3995 or 0935-681-7229. Again, siya ni Jean Pacquiao de Guzman, may isang legit and authorized distributor ti I Am Amazing Pure Organic Barley from Australia.
Lisensya ba ang problema mo?
Yes,
Jaila Driving School ang puntahan mo.
I love it.
A driving school accredited by LTO. They offer TDC or Theoretical Driving Course. Kailangan ito para magkaroon ka ng Student Permit. PDC naman or Practical Driving Course para sa mga kumukuha ng mga non-prof or professional driver's license. Upgrading of Restriction Code. Ito naman para madagdagan ang klase ng sasakyan na pwede mong imaneho. O di kaya ang Special Driving Course para sa mga gustong matuto ng tamang pagdadrive ng motorsiklo, tricycle, four wheels, manual or automatic at iba pa.
It's great to learn these.
Jaila Driving School. Garantisado ang serbisyo. Mababait at masisipag pa ang mga magtuturo sa inyo.
You got it right.
Kaya madali kang matuto.
Beautiful day.
Jaila Driving School with its main branch located along Quirino Boulevard, Barangay 9, Kuta, Vigan City. And soon, Sinait Branch located National National Highway, Kalanutian, Sinait, Ilocos Sur. Enroll now at Jaila Driving School. Put the key in the ignition. Invest in driver's education. For inquiries, call 0966-981-0745 or 0922-867-4357 or visit their Facebook page, Jaila Driving School. Enroll now.
Ang init naman dito sa kotse mo, pare koy.
Sira na naman kasi yung aircon niya eh.
Sira na naman? Di ba kapapaayos mo lang kahapon? Pare, punta ka na kay Elmer Romero ng Romero's Car Aircon. A real air conditioning expert. 100% guarantee. Nakatipid ka na? Aircon mo, long life pa. Kaya punta na sa Romero's Car Aircon. The Denso Authorized Service Center with well-trained technician of Denso Philippines. Hindi lang basta aircon. Romero's Car Aircon. Located at National Highway, Balaling and Agay, Bantay, Ilocos Sur. For information, call or text 0939-922-8485.
As the Heritage Province of the North reopens to tourists, it launches the all-new Tour Ilocos Sur app. A quick guide to Ilocos Sur at your fingertips. Find the best tourist spots. Hotels. Bars and restaurants. And authentic Ilocos Sur products and food. Be updated on upcoming events. Plus, get notified on the important announcements and updates. Available for global download on Android and iOS. The Tour Ilocos Sur app. Historical becomes digital.
Okay, tuloy-tuloy tayo mga kaibigan. Medyo ya kamo dapat na amnesty nga ited ti gobyerno tayo. Kadagiti amin na po nga da service firearms ng kolorom, whether it long or short firearms. Pero magbabayad ka ng 35,000. Ano ba yan? Mahal-mahal naman. Hindi kagaya noon ba 500 lang at saka 1,000. Oh. Negosyo mo't dito yan na po. Tata, damanan, parwardan. Dati, may parit nga gigam iti dagitoy guwapo. Civilian iti long. Tata na po tiramidan dan, ikanda kanumanan na po iti authority da nga gigam. Okay, basta i-process da. Okay, inya nga rod, kasta ka talaga. Siyempre, pagkakitaan, itanto pa eltap nga rod. Mga kaibigan, pagkakitaan na kita. Okay, BBM ta? Okay, so madamdaman to mga kaibigan, ito yung BBM tayo, lalo na pa ni Presidente ni Australia for the economic cooperations and other projects, mga kaibigan. Amo yung amin na po, ito pagilian to Australia tata, may sa kanagiti kaaduan na po iti pag-deployan ti Pilipino, pagsapulan. Tirigan na kami di jay, mapangkadya agbasa ka pailaang. Kaya, o rin professional ka kuman dito, agbasa ka pailang di jay. For 2 years, mga kaibigan. Sakin may sa, maapo nga na dyan ng ato ti sahod. Di ba? Oh, so nga nagriga nga pampano, ti dapat mo te kasla ko architect ka kumati Pilipinas na mapangga kumamo di Australia na kita working visa ka nga dagos moten ako man. Amoy pagbasahin na ka pa lang, back to zero ka pa lang, nagadunto pa lang sa exam mo. Oh, adoriga mo lang nga nang ipapasa ti exam mo dito yan, sus Mario Josep. Si kanto pa lang di ay nga garantiya na nga may pasa mo. Iti examinations mo di abroad, mga kaibigan. Nako, talaga naman. By the way, congratulations kagiti amin na po nga pimasa iti Sanitary Board, Sanitary Engineering Board. Idi kano niya dinaminsan. Adumat ti nakaruar ti University of Northern Philippines. Muna kita pintas kita pang abroad, mga kaibigan, di kita. Kaya na dito yan o repento yan tayo man. O damo na kita ay patadar apo ti darakkel nga building na kailangan nga talaga apo iti biyang iti sanitary engineer and at the same time plumber papagayam. So congratulations kada kayo amin nga pimmasa nga awan iti labas na. Kaya siyempre usaray nyo reta para iti future yo kaya at the same time para iti bukod yung na po nga pamilya. Okay na? Eto na po, BBM po tayo mga kaibigan.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Mr. President, I welcome you to the House of Representatives chamber. Your address today is a significant occasion in the history of the House. And I give the call to the Honourable the Prime Minister.
Your Excellency, President Marcos, on behalf of the Australian Government and indeed the Australian people, it is my very great pleasure to welcome you and the First Lady to our nation's Parliament. This is an historic occasion for both our democracies. It is also the natural next step in our nation's growing partnership. The bilateral relationship between Australia and the Philippines is now 78 years old. Our ties of trade and culture, friendship and family are of course centuries older. In East Arnhem Land, the art and stories of the Yolngu people tell of their ancestors boarding, visiting trading ships and sailing to far-off islands. In every sense, Mr. President, our peoples have been on a voyage together for a very long time. Australia and the Philippines are in the same boat, and we share a vision for our destination, a peaceful, secure, stable and prosperous Indo-Pacific. We know the course to follow, strengthening our economic partnership through trade and investment, building on our connections in education and skills, and creating more opportunities for our young people through the new work and holiday visa that we have agreed together. Continuing our shared efforts in agricultural research, and deepening our cooperation in defence to support regional security. This is the new level of engagement our government is seeking between our two nations and indeed across ASEAN as a whole. I know the Philippines is rightly proud of its place as one of the 5 founding members of ASEAN, and all of us in Australia are looking forward to next week's special summit in Melbourne, which will mark 50 years since Australia became ASEAN's first dialogue partner. For Australia, ASEAN is central and it is essential. And we want to continue to work closely with the Philippines and all our friends and partners in ASEAN to promote the shared opportunity that drives our regional prosperity and to fulfil our collective responsibility to uphold regional security. Mr. President, our nations share a determination to navigate the challenges of our time: climate change, food security, cyber security, counter-terrorism, and regional security. The new strategic partnership that you and I signed together in Manila last year speaks to our mutual trust and our common resolve. I'm pleased we're building on this momentum today, signing a Memorandum of Understanding for enhanced maritime cooperation and agreeing to new initiatives in key areas of digital technology and cyber security. As our nations work together in this decisive decade for the Indo-Pacific, we can draw inspiration from our shared history. In June 1943, when 8 Australian servicemen escaped from their prisoner of war camp in Sandakan, they joined the Filipino resistance in their struggle against Japanese occupation. In Palo, on Leyte, a memorial stands in honour of the 92 Australians who lost their lives in the liberation of the Philippines in 1944. Our nations served and sacrificed together in Korea. In 1999, the Philippines joined Australia in supporting independence for East Timor. And in 2013, Australian defence personnel and medical mission teams returned to the Philippines to provide humanitarian assistance after Typhoon Yolanda. That's the spirit of Filipino, Bayanihan and Australian mateship. We work together and we care for each other. Mr. President, this connection and affection lives and thrives in the electorates of so many members of the Parliament that you see here today, where members from all sides of politics have the privilege of representing the large and growing Filipino-Australian community, many of whom have joined us in the Parliament today. People famous for their generosity, hospitality and love of family, renowned for their hard work and aspiration, and always looking to give back to the community. That's just as true in my electorate in Sydney's inner west as it is in the regions, like in Port Wakefield in South Australia. 18 months ago, their local country fire service was staring down the barrel of closure. When the small band of volunteers put out a call for new recruits, they received only one response: Samson Bukol, who migrated to Australia from the Philippines in 2014. His dedication to duty won the respect and affection of his fellow volunteers, and he soon passed the word on to others. Today, a quarter of the members of that country fire service are of Filipino descent, and half of the cadets, characteristic of the spirit of the Filipino diaspora that proudly calls Australia home. Mr. President, you address us today as a leader in the region where, more than any other, Australia's destiny lies. And as we look to shape the future together, I'm reminded of something you said to me at our last meeting. Prosperity and progress depend on peace. And this is what our strategic partnership recognises, and that is what is so significant about the maritime cooperation activities our two navies completed together for the first time in November last year. We are both island nations, we are both trading nations, and for both of us, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is not an abstract notion or a theoretical question. Freedom of navigation is fundamental to our sovereignty, our prosperity, our security, and our territorial integrity. Our cooperation is an assertion of our national interest and a recognition of our regional responsibility. It reflects our shared understanding that peace depends on more than the presence of the great powers. All of us in the international community, middle powers like our two nations, as well as smaller nations, have our part to play in building a more stable, peaceful and prosperous future. President Marcos, to conclude on a personal note, I do want to say how touched Jody and I were by the kindness extended to us during our time in your wonderful country last year. We were proud to host you at the Lodge last night. That was a very pleasant dinner, not so much work, just enjoyable. 4 people together, engaging in a spirit of respect and friendship. I think that was a great beginning to your important visit. And what I know very sincerely is that you will be warmly welcomed wherever you go in our nation of Australia, because all of us in this place, and indeed all Australians, are united in our respect for the contribution that your nation and your people make to our region and to our communities. You honour us today, and we very much look forward to your address.
And I give the call to the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Well, I commend the Prime Minister for his very fine words. And on behalf of the Coalition and Federal Opposition, I extend to you, President Marcos, a very warm and hearty welcome and greetings. Your Excellency, to you, to Her Excellency First Lady Marcos, and to the entire Republic of the Philippines delegation. Australia welcomes you, our Parliament welcomes you, and of course our people warmly welcome you. Millions of Australians will watch your address today, Mr President, and when they do, they will not only see the face of a foreign leader, they will hear the words of a dear friend of Australia. And if words carry sentiments across land and sea, then to you and through you, Mr President, I send my best wishes to the friendly, faith-fortified and fearless people of the Philippines. 78 years ago, in the main square of Manila, an American flag was lowered and the flag of the Philippines was raised. As a new republic was born, a newly inaugurated president addressed his countrymen and marked the forward thrust of the frontiers of freedom. It was on that day, the 4th of July 1946, when President Rojas joyfully declared that the Filipino people had reached the summit of the high mountain of independence. It was indeed a long and arduous historic climb, from ancient communities occupying a vast archipelago to colonial rule under the Spanish, from a revolt against the Spanish to becoming the subjects of the United States, from occupation under the Imperial Japanese forces to American liberation and the final steps of stewardship towards sovereignty. When President Rojas delivered his speech, he knew the challenges of nation building that awaited his fellow Filipinos. Only weeks earlier, he'd outlined the hurdles ahead: a country in ruins from war, a people beset by unemployment, hunger, disease, inflation and housing inadequacy. Yet the President at the time was optimistic. He said, if we conquer the obstacles which bar our way, our people will grow great in the eyes of men. The Philippines aspires to greatness. President Marcos, today you lead a nation and people who no longer need to aspire to greatness because the Philippines is a great country by any measure of the word. Your nation and your people are truly great in the eyes of Australians. Indeed, only 33 years after your country attained independence, our 22nd Prime Minister was on your soil attending a dinner hosted by your father, President Marcos Sr. Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser spoke with admiration about the development of the Philippines and described Manila as one of the great cities of the world. Mr President, the bonds between our peoples were forged amidst the hell of the Second World War. Within the Australian national consciousness is an enduring admiration for both our nation's forebears who served and sacrificed to liberate the Philippines. As the Prime Minister rightly pointed out, a handful of Australian prisoners of war escaped from Borneo to your islands and joined your guerrillas. Thousands more of our sailors, airmen and signals intelligence officers supported General Douglas MacArthur's military operation. Indeed, at the MacArthur Memorial Landing Park in Leyte, the names of 92 Australians who gave their lives for liberation are recorded on a monument. Ever so poignantly, only last year, the wreck of the prisoner ship, SS Montevideo Maru, was found on the northern coast of the Philippines. If there is any solace in that tragedy, it is that almost 1,000 Australian souls have their resting place in the waters which belong to our Filipino friends. From our partnership in war has emerged a camaraderie between our two peoples. In the 1950s, under the Colombo Plan, Filipino students came to this country to further their education. The 1970s saw many Filipinos migrate to Australia for work. First generations beget subsequent generations, and today, Mr. President, our nation is so proud to be home to more than 400,000 Australians of Filipino ancestry. Indeed, Filipino-born migrants constitute one of our largest migrant groups. Just as Australia is home to many Filipinos, the Philippines is home, of course, to many Australians. And importantly, Mr. President, the pipeline between our two countries flows seamlessly both ways. A pipeline which carries people, businesses and commerce. The term friendshoring might be new, but deepening trade and investment with long-standing and trusted partners who share the same values is not a new concept. And in these uncertain times, Mr. President, there is much that Australia and the Philippines can continue to do to strengthen our supply chains. As you correctly observed during your address at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies last year, economic security is national security. And of course, Mr. President, we find ourselves in times of emboldened autocrats and belligerent regimes who show utter contempt for sovereignty, law and liberty. Your country shows and knows a resolve because your country knows that the threats are real. For many years, the Philippines has been on the front line, subjected to grey zone activities. And I commend you for your personal resolve, Mr. President, for you and your country's courage in calling out acts of coercion and the Philippines' steadfast commitment to international law. Last year, you received much applause for your remark in your State of the Nation address when you said, "We will protect our sovereign rights and preserve our territorial integrity in defence of a rules-based international order." Mr. President, these words of yours encapsulate an imperative for all nations who cherish peace, prosperity and the preservation of civilisation itself. Together then, with our many partners and friends in the region, we must all continue to speak up with courage in calling out acts of intimidation and interference. We must all maintain our strenuous efforts in diplomacy, and we must all especially lift our individual efforts to support the collective goal of integrated deterrence. I thank you most sincerely, Mr. President, for your emphatic support for AUKUS, as you appreciate the work of AUKUS seeks to complement the efforts of other nations in the region to uphold sovereignty, security and stability, and most importantly, to preserve peace. The centrality of ASEAN is often spoken about and the central role it plays in regional affairs. In these precarious times, I hope that defence deterrence will be at the very centre of discussions at next week's ASEAN Summit. Mr. President, you are truly a great guest and friend of our country. You are honoured today by a very grateful friend in our nation, and with our friendly words, we welcome the words of a friend most dear.
Mr. President, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to address the House of Representatives.
The Honourable Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, the Honourable President of the Senate, President Sue Lyons, the Honourable Speaker Milton Dick, and the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Peter Dutton, Honourable Senators, Members of Parliament. Allow me to also greet the 48 Honourable Members of the Philippines-Australia Parliamentary Group that are present with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me to begin, Mr. Speaker, by acknowledging the Ngunawal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and to pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I also extend my respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that are with us here today. The First Lady and I are delighted to be in Canberra. We are grateful to Governor General David Hurley for his invitation to us as guests of government. As President of a proud and free country, few other honors surpass this opportunity to address one of democracy's most august institutions, the Parliament of Australia. The long-standing friendship between our two great nations transcends the 78 years of our formal diplomatic relations. It is anchored on deep bonds of mutual respect and fond affection, which find concrete expression today in the rich contributions of more than 400,000 Filipinos to Australia, comprising the fifth largest migrant community in your country today. These bonds trace their roots as far back as the 1860s, when Filipino pearl divers, known to you then as the Manila Men, found their way to your shores as early purveyors of globalization. These Manila Men contributed to the Australian economy, they enriched Australian life, and, most importantly, they sparked meaningful connections that have endured through generations. When our two nations faced common danger in 1942, Filipino soldiers fought valiantly in Bataan and Corregidor. They faced the impossible task of holding back the enemy's advance, and yet we did. These efforts helped keep Australia safe, and in return, a grateful Australian people provided temporary refuge for the wartime Filipino leadership. And at the most crucial moment, Australian airmen, sailors, and soldiers fought side by side with Filipinos as we, together with our allies, turned the tide of war. Just as Filipinos lost lives to keep Australians safe at the onset of war, so did Australians offer their lives to restore freedom in the Philippines at the dawn of peace. As allies, we engaged actively in shaping the free world's vision for the post-war order. We worked to ensure that the new peace would respect the rights of all nations. As founding members of the United Nations, we turned that vision into reality. From the very beginning, we knew that our interests were intertwined. The security of Australia is bound with the security of the Philippines. When my father accompanied Prime Minister Whitlam on a sentimental tour of Bataan and Corregidor in 1974, they reaffirmed that core principle. When I signed our strategic partnership with Prime Minister Albanese last September, we marked a milestone in our deliberate and steady effort to build opportunities for our peoples while contributing to regional peace. All of these further affirm what our two peoples have already forged through many centuries. I look back on our shared history to contextualize the role that our respective nations played and continue today to play at this watershed moment. Geopolitical polarities and strategic competitions threaten our hard-won peace, even as we remain beset by unresolved inequities and inequalities within and amongst nations. Powerful and transformative technologies can destabilize our political and social order. Climate change threatens our very existence. These tectonic shifts are acutely felt in the Indo-Pacific. It has become crucial for us now to envision the shape, the breadth, and the depth of our strategic partnership and how it must move forward as we weather the storms of global volatility. I see the way forward in building on the strong ties that have already been established between our citizens, between our economies, between our governments. Today, we add a further dimension to that relationship as we address concerns on our security and defense. We are called upon once again to join forces, together with our partners, in the face of threats to the rule of law, to stability, and to peace. For the Philippines, Australia plays a crucial role as one of only two partners with the Philippines, with which the Philippines has a visiting forces agreement. In August of last year, I witnessed Exercise Alon, our bilateral amphibious activity involving 560 Filipino soldiers, 1,200 Australian servicemen, and 120 US Marines. Last November, we welcomed the inaugural maritime cooperative activity between Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Australian Defence Force in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Let this just be the beginning. Your leaders have always taken the position that the destiny of Australia is irrevocably linked to the destiny of Asia. Over the years, you have held true to this tenet. You have become a valuable member of Asia and of the Indo-Pacific community. Our two countries have always understood that without the predictability and stability of our rules-based order, our region would not have emerged as a driver of the global economy as it is today. We have long known that our prosperity and development are anchored on the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific. Today, that peace, that stability, and our continued success have come under threat. Once again, we must come together as partners to face the common challenges confronting the region. Not one single country can do this by itself. No single force can counter them by themselves. This is why our strategic partnership has grown more important than ever. We must reinforce each other's strengths. We must protect the peace that we fought for during the war and have jealously guarded in the decades since. We must oppose actions that clearly denigrate the rule of law. As in 1942, the Philippines now finds itself on the front line against actions that undermine regional peace, erode regional stability, and threaten regional success. Then as now, we remain firm in defending our sovereignty, our sovereign rights, our jurisdiction. I shall never tire of repeating the declaration that I made from the first day that I took office. I will not allow any attempt by any foreign power to take even 1 square inch of our sovereign territory. The challenges that we face may be formidable, but equally formidable is our resolve. We will not yield. Then as now, the security and continued prosperity of the region of countries like Australia relies upon that effort. Just as we fought to build our rules-based international order, so are we now fighting to protect it. The protection of the South China Sea as a vital, critical global artery is crucial to the preservation of regional peace and, I dare say, of global peace. We have an abiding interest in keeping our seas free and open and in ensuring unimpeded passage and freedom of navigation. We must uphold, preserve, and defend the unified and universal character of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea as the constitution of the oceans. We draw strength from the consistent and unequivocal support of Australia and the international community for the lawful exercise of our rights, which have been settled under international law. And so, on behalf of the Filipino people, I thank you, Australia, for standing with the Republic of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, we demonstrate the depth and breadth of our security cooperation through regular exchanges between our armed forces and our coast guards, including in the areas of maritime security, counterterrorism, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief. We collaborate to strengthen and seek new business links, to bolster our economic security, and to develop responses to economic coercion. We work together to promote and enhance the flow of environmentally sustainable investment and to explore cooperation on mineral resources development and climate and energy transition, amongst others. Indeed, we have made good progress since we signed our strategic partnership last year. Ultimately, our partnership finds its anchor in our common commitment to ensuring that this region keeps to the path of peace, builds resilience, remains focused on delivering dividends to our citizens and our communities. Beyond our bilateral horizon, we project the commitment in our continued adherence to ASEAN centrality, which we will have the opportunity to reaffirm at the special summit between ASEAN and Australia in Melbourne next week. Beyond the region, we project this commitment too in our partnership and active leadership on the international stage. We collaborate closely with Australia to strengthen international security and universal adherence to international humanitarian law. I salute Prime Minister Albanese's personal commitment to our vision of a world free of nuclear weapons. It is a commitment that is shared by all peoples of Southeast Asia, with those of Australia and the Pacific Island states. Through the treaties of Bangkok and Rarotonga, our two regions serve as pockets of freedom from these destructive weapons. Within the ambit of the ASEAN Regional Forum and the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, our two countries are champions of nuclear disarmament and advocates for nuclear risk reduction. In the context of emerging technologies such as autonomous weapon systems and of new frontiers such as outer space and cyberspace, there is much room for our two countries to work together. Our collaboration in the United Nations demonstrates the need to continue to build bridges and to forge consensus towards decisive multilateral solutions. We cannot allow geopolitics to paralyze global governance. Now more than ever, we need multilateralism to work. This is particularly important given the scope of global cooperation needed to address our most pressing vulnerability, one that threatens the very survival of our peoples, one that threatens our very future. I speak, of course, of climate change. My country accepts its part in our collective responsibility. My administration is committed to accelerating our just, affordable, sustainable, and inclusive energy transition towards carbon neutrality. The Philippines has the potential to be a net carbon sink, absorbing more carbon dioxide than we emit. Yet, we are one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world, ranking first in the 2023 World Risk Index. This glaring disproportion between our share of responsibility and our vulnerability reflects an injustice that must be corrected. Developed countries must do more, and they must do it now. Our past successes should inspire us to forge ahead in building the future to which we aspire. For the Philippines, we continue to see that future in our identity as Asians and as members of the Pacific family. Together with our Asian neighbors, and in that group I include Australia, we continue to work for a regional community that empowers all of our citizens. As Asians, we are committed to fulfilling our region's promise as a global engine of growth and in remaining true to our shared value of mutual respect, our shared desire to flourish through our diversity. As part of the Pacific, we carry in our very DNA the heritage of seafaring civilizations that span two oceans. This manifests in the high regard our cultures place on family, on community, and on the environment. In Australia, we see not only a strong democracy, but an indispensable part of our Pacific community, a permanent stakeholder in the future of Asia, and a reliable supporter of ASEAN centrality. In Australia, we see a natural partner in our efforts to defend, to preserve, to uphold our open, inclusive, and rules-based international order, to ensure that it remains governed by international law and informed by the principles of equity and justice. In Australia, we see a lifelong friend with whom we have endured joint sacrifices, reveled in our shared victories, and now pursue common aspirations. All this inspires confidence in the future of our strategic partnership. This confidence is shared not only by our two governments, but also by our two peoples. We see this in the face of the almost 35,000 Filipino students who choose Australian schools to pursue their respective endeavors, the fifth largest foreign student population in Australia. We see this too in the nearly 30,000 Australians who work and live with us and have chosen to call the Philippines their home. We see this more importantly in the spirit of bayanihan and mateship that defines our relationship. Our mateship brought Australians to Tacloban, my mother's hometown, to bring relief in the aftermath of Super Typhoon Haiyan in 2013. Our bayanihan brought closure and peace to the families of the gallant Australians that perished in the sinking of the Montevideo Maru in 1942. And this is the same spirit that now brings our sailors, our airmen and soldiers together, shoulder to shoulder, in defending our rights and in securing our common future. For when the Southern Cross met the Pearl of the Orient, a friendship blossomed, withstood the test of war, and flourished through the changes brought about by a world in flux. Looking ahead, I am confident that Filipinos and Australians will remain steadfast partners, unyielding and uncompromising in our shared values, and energized as we gird ourselves to work together in the spirit of bayanihan and of mateship. Thank you and mabuhay.
Mr. President, on behalf of the House of Representatives, I thank you for your address. I wish you and Her Excellency the First Lady a successful and enjoyable stay in Australia. I thank the President of the Senate and Senators for their attendance, and I invite the Prime Minister to escort our guests to meet members and senators as they depart the chamber.
Ambassador.